let's get started with our first speaker. So let me introduce you guys to Gavin. Gavin is a professionally employed software developer for more than 20 years. Gavin had all kinds of experiences across many projects, open source, meetups, companies. He's here today to share his learnings on testing in general. Oh wait, no, not testing. The CLI isn't as scary. I got it mixed up, sorry. Please give it up for Gavin.
So it has been a little while since I did any presentations, so bear with me here. But today I'm going to be covering. You can't hear me? I know. I thought it was close enough. I guess I'm not. You can hear me now? Okay, we'll do that then. Closer. Should I just lean over and go like, yeah? Okay, is this good now? Okay, we're gonna do this then. So I'm gonna be covering, I called the title, the CLI isn't as scary as you think. But for the most part, it's gonna be about just using the command line effectively. So to get started, I'm Gavin, senior developer at DigitalOcean. Currently doing back-end work on the billing team. I've been there just over 5 years now, which I know in tech terms, that's like 1,000 years. But today I'm going to be covering the basics of command line and Linux, so it becomes a lot less intimidating. My plan is to throw a lot of stuff at you, but not worry about anyone needing to actually remember everything, right? So the point is that you see things, and you might be able to look them up later. All my presentation notes is on my website, so if you do want them later to come back to them, that's fine. So don't worry about remembering everything. The point is just to see things. So, okay, so bit things up front. Like I said, I'm planning on covering Linux because I know it the best, but everything I cover today should probably work on the Mac and probably will work to some degree on Windows. This is really up to just concepts right now, but there are some specific stuff. I'm also trying to stick to the convention. Whoops, didn't actually go there. If it has a $ in front, it's usually a prompt, like the command prompt, so that you know it's a command being typed in and not the response to the command being typed in. And lastly, Linux specifically doesn't care about what order things are typed in. It's very forgiving. The Mac version of things tend to be pretty specific about it. So if at any point in time you're like, that doesn't work on my Mac, it's probably because it's in the wrong order on the Mac. Yeah, okay. Oh, and then lastly, I realized this pretty late on. Linux tools like npm modules are really designed for doing one thing and doing the one thing well. So a lot of the time you can stack things. And so the second half of the presentation will be discussing how to stack those tools back to back. Okay, so first thing, for getting help, there's man pages. So this is short for manual. So for the most part, if you're ever stuck with a command, you can just type man, the name of the command, you'll get way too much documentation about it, and it's been written over like 30 years, so there's way too much stuff, but it's there. For actual shell functions themselves, you can use help. Help doesn't work for most things, but it does work for like for and loops and stuff like that, so it is there. And sometimes, actually a lot of times these days, -- help will give you short help. In fact, I usually find it better because it's right there and I can see it, as opposed to man pages, which like open another program. But also don't forget or don't underestimate just asking your neighbor for help, because I guarantee you every single person here, your neighbor knows something you don't know. You know things they don't know, and they know things you don't know. So getting started, just the day-to-day command line shortcuts. I'm just going to cover this first because I couldn't figure out how to like mash them together later on. But so when you're typing in commands, you can press up and down to get back to your history. But then the level up version of that, which is the one I always tend to share the most, is Control-R. So at any point in time, you can hit Control-R and it searches through your history instead of up and down, which is really, really nice when you're like, I know a month ago I typed in npm something, but I can't remember which version of it. You just type npm and then you just keep hitting Control-R until you find the one that you missed. And then some basic ones. So we got, Control-W, Control-K, Control-U. Those are just commands for like deleting words and deleting lines. Super useful as you get into the habit of having them, because they are where your fingers are normally. Just in case you want to learn more, the default is Emacs mode. So if you want to go look up the commands for Emacs, this is where you get all the shortcut codes. These are just ones I use all the time. Okay. Oh yeah, so there's my little, oh, you probably can't see it, but little example of Control R, so I can run a couple commands. I forgot how slow this was. And then you hit Control R and you can type back and npm and it finds that last command. You hit enter, it runs again. Okay. And there are lots of tools out there, which I don't think I had time to cover, that'll even make this more impressive. So there's a tool called FZF, which is my favorite. It gives you a nice, really fuzzy searching thing. Unfortunately, I didn't get time to add those slides because I have a lot of things, but yeah. Okay, so next up. Whoa.
It's really hard to hear in the back.
That's fair. A little hard to hear up here now. Okay, we're good. We're good. I'll point this way. Better? Yeah. Okay. So next up, where are you? So anytime you're in the command line, it's very useful to know where you are. So different terminals will drop you in different locations. For the most part, it'll be your home directory. So in this case, I'm saying it's home Gavin M, but you should be able to find it out pretty quickly by typing pwd. Tell you where you are. At any point you're lost, just type pwd. It's like looking at Google Maps is super useful. It does. I have notes here about that. I don't understand why the variable print working directory exists, but it does. There's also CWD, which is for current working directory. Don't know why. Don't know why there's two of them. For changing directories, it's all about CD. So in this case, what do I have? So just again, example, if you go without a slash, you're relative. So where you are right now, it's a subdirectory of the directory you're in right now. So in this case, CD git. But if I want to go to an absolute location anywhere else on the disk without thinking about where I am right now, you want to start with a slash. So same thing as URLs. No slash at the start, relative, slash, absolute. And then if you have anything with special characters in it, you can either use a backslash, in this case a space, backslash, or quotes. So a lot of times you can actually go to the full directory, especially if you're like me on often Windows, people like to name folders with spaces in them, and then it's really hard to get around to the command line. So you can use quotes and spaces with them pretty easily. Okay, so the next one for me is getting back. So at work we use we do mono repo a lot, so it's really nice to switch to one directory, then back, switch to another directory, back. So for me, the big one is CD minus. So it'll always go to the last directory you're in. So if you go, like sometimes I get confused and go two directories, you're out of luck. There are tools for that. This is not one of them, but CD minus will go back to the last one. So it's very nice and convenient for jumping around back and forth. So next up, LS. And this is one where I know in different OSs it's different. In Windows it's dir, but in Linux it's ls. And there is, by default, or the ls command by itself will just list your directories. And then there's lots and lots of flags. I think this one where you look at the man page, it's like 6 or 7 pages long, which are flags. So ones I use a lot are -l, which gives me details about files. So tell me everything I need to know, often more than I need to know. So like when it was last modified, who changed it, that kind of thing. The next one for me is always sorting by time. So I want to know the most recent changed files. You know, often I was working on this thing yesterday. I can't remember what directory it was in. ls-r. Is it too? No, I think it's fine. Again, all my slides are online, so you can grab them afterwards if you want. But -r reverses your order by time. Sorry, -t does time, -r reverses it. So that gives you the oldest files at the bottom, I think. But that means that you can find what the recent changes were. So often very useful for coming back the next day going, I know I got started, but I don't know where it was. And then -a will list all the hidden files. Less useful these days, but for a long time, hidden files were where you put all your metadata and you needed to find them again. Okay, when am I? So this one often confuses people. So date is very useful. Date is just a command I use on the command line all the time, especially when I'm trying to figure out what time it is in UTC. So in this example, I'm setting it to Vancouver time, but you often want to set it back to UTC to find out where you are. But that's different than the time command. The time command has nothing to do with the date and time. The time command tells you how long something took to run, which is also very useful, but just separate. Okay. So the next batch is testing HTTP commands. So we have wget and curl. these days, they do approximately the same things. But for the most part, I would say WGA is really good about getting files. You can do mirror mode, which does entire website. You can do individual files. You can do continue large downloads. WGA is really good at getting the files, while curl is a lot better at hitting individual APIs. So, you can specify headers, you can specify retries, all the things that you would want to manually test a URL. And I'm going to bring this up later when we start talking about how to combine these, because it's really nice to be able to hit an API, get the results, process it, and do something else with it. So, but again, if you only have one or the other, they'll both work fine. But just generally, WGA is better at downloading, and curl is better at accessing. Okay. So I still warning people, this is a lot, but I'm not trying to get you to learn everything. It's just exposure. So head and tail. Head and tail are incredibly useful when you're working with command line tools. So for front-end developer, maybe not as useful, but if you have any command that outputs a lot of data, sometimes you want the start of the file or start of the contents or the end of the content. Tail is really good. So for log files, it's really easy to grab, you dash the tail, you give it a file name, and you'll get the end of the results. Yeah, I don't have much else to say about it. Capital F is just one to remember. If you got a program that's constantly closing and reopening your file, like rewriting it, capital F is really good at reopening it. So like a long-running tail that you don't have to constantly keep opening it. Okay, now we're going to start getting into the things that are a little bit more useful on stacking. So redirection. So redirection is something that has a lot of power. I'm not going to cover like half of it, but it has a lot. So you have, where did I go? An arrow to the right is essentially writing to the file. So you take the output of your command, so curl, tail, head, any of the files, things we come up with, you can write it to a file. And then if you want to separate your standard output, your normal output, and your errors, you can use the two followed by the thing. So this is, in Linux, 2 is error. I do know why, but I'm not going to cover why. But 2 is error. So if at any point you want to start telling your errors to go to a different spot, so let's say you got a command that errors a lot, but you only care about the output, you can say 2 go over here, 1 go over here, right? Nice and powerful. And then I find it useful a lot is T. T will actually print it out and save it. So it's very good for a long-running command where you want to see the progress, but also log that progress. Let's say you're deleting a huge directory and you want it to print out every step, but you don't want to wait till it finishes to find out any errors. So T is really good for that. And this is the pipe, but I'll get the pipes in a few minutes. Then you got the other direction. You got a file on your disk and you want to pass it into a command. So I'm guessing at most point people are not using the MySQL command line nearly as often as I grew up doing. But this is one of those examples. You got this big SQL file, you want to run 1,000 queries, you don't want to really sit there and wait for it to finish running. You just send it into the command. So you run MySQL, you arrow it in, and then that file contents goes in. Okay, more complication. Wildcards. Wildcards is where I think people start getting really confused really quickly. So wildcards do work differently in different shells, different OSs, but the basics here work the same. Wildcard will do, or like the normal wildcard where you do like star.log, star.txt means anything followed by that string. And that works really good, really easy. So in this case, you can do it for a directory. So in my example, I say anything in my develop directory, all applications, the logs, and development. This is back when I did Ruby, so every Rails application works the same way. It's always the logs directory inside your application.
For the first command, log all the matches?
It'll open all the matches.
All the matches?
Yes. But only one level deep.
Sure.
So you can do that. You can do partial matches. So you can, like the second command there is a suffix. So you can say anything that starts with or ends with and still your star. But then what next one is the double star. The double star will do as many directories as you want. So you can say, hey, give me every directory that also has a log directory in it. And that could be 1 level deep or 1,000 level deep. It does not care. Okay. Okay, chaining. Okay, fine. Fine. Faster. Okay. Chaining. So chaining is when you start getting into more advanced. You want to do something, and then if it succeeds, do something else, right? Or if it fails, do something, or in this, or sometimes even just do it anyways. So you got your normal ampersands, just like in programming. If you do, you can do something to true and echo true. If you have your or symbols, it says if it fails, run this instead. And then the semicolon specifically says, I don't care if it finished or not, do it anyways. So sometimes that's really good for like creating a bunch of directories. You don't care which ones succeed or fail, you just want them all created, right? Okay, again, exposure here. Control statements, Bash has them. You'll start seeing them as you start digging into scripts more and more. The ones I use the most are probably for and if, and I will be covering for quite a bit in the future slide. But same basic idea. You got your if something's true, do it. You can do greater than, less than. All those things are built into Bash, so you can do it. But it's if, do it. For, do it. While, do it. Okay, I'm going to skip over this one. This is just, the find command is really useful, but it is a lot. So I'm going to leave it there. And then I have a list here of just general commands that you'll find out quite a bit. Cat and tac will let you read files. I've never found a use for tac, but I love the fact that it exists, which is just cat backwards. Less lets you look at anything you want, but with pagination, so you can hit up and down, next page. RM for removing file, RM dir for deleting a directory, make dir, and touch are all just commands for making files very easily. I'm not sure how many people here use that kind of thing, but as a day-to-day thing, I end up using them quite a bit. And then the one that I always want to point out is there is the -p flag from mkdir. So when you want to make a big long directory and you don't have the first one, you just give it -p and it'll make all the subdirectories for you. Okay, because I wouldn't be good without a GIF at some point in the thing. Pipes. So pipes is where we start actually combining various things in the shell and start adding to them. So I did this as an individual. Okay. So grep as a command I haven't covered yet, but essentially you give it a stream, so a file, a command, anything else, and it will just return any line that matches that line. And there's lots of different versions of grep. They can ones that use regular expressions, ones that use straight up strings. It doesn't matter. There are various tools. But then you can take that contents and pipe it into the next tool. So in this case, I'm using awk because I know it really well. But there's a bunch of other ones, right? So in this case, this is the second example there. I'm taking one field out of a file. So in this case, the user agent, I want to know which user agent is hitting my server all the time. But your user agent is actually a big long string with strings in it. So that's not always the most useful. So in this case, I can actually use awk and say, hey, split on the quote mark and not the space. So this becomes very useful when you start doing things that you want to loop through or compound or build reports on. For loops. This is where I use for loops all the time, for almost daily. I don't know how I end up doing it, but I end up doing it. So in this case, I'm going to make 3 directories. So I'm looping through, the same as in any other language. You give it your variable name, you give it your list of things. So in this case, for I and Gavin likes pie, make those directories. And now I have a directory called Gavin, one called likes, and Gavin pie. Again, don't know why I do it, but I have it. For can also do wildcards. It doesn't really care where you get the data. So this is really good for when you want to like rename a bunch of files. So you can say loop through all the files in a directory, rename the old one to the new one, and now you have all your files with the dot back on them. Really useful when you're in a command line. You're like, I made all these changes. I don't want to lose them. I mean, you can git stash them or something like that, but in this case, you can just back them up and restore them or copy them or whatever else. So subshells. So another example is this seq. It's a sequence command. So it's not something I end up using very much anymore, but it's very good at just listing out numbers, right? So let's say you want to make 5 copies of this file. This could do this really quickly and easily. It's a really good command. There's I believe a -w flag that will let you do it 0 delimited. So if you want to have everything starting with like 3 zeros, it can handle that. Again, it does the one thing really well. But you can do this as an ls, so you can say for everything in list this directory. It doesn't care. It's just a list. Search and replace. So there's a ton of different options out there. Personally, I like Perl Pi because it's the easiest one for me to remember. So you give it a pi-e, you give it a regular expression, which I'm hoping people at least have seen, if not understand here, and you give it a list of files. So this can be reading in, this one can't be reading in from somewhere else, but in this case, files do work. So in this case, I have my file called Gavin likes pie, and I change it, and now Bibi likes pie, which I checked. She does like pie, but likes cake better.
I prefer cake.
Cake is better, but that doesn't work for this example. So coming up to trying to explain some real world examples, one I've actually used in the last couple months when I've been writing these. So I had an example where I was modifying a ton of JSON files, like a good 20 of them. And I have a problem where I often will forget to delete that comma or add a comma on the end of that list, and it screws me up. And instead of like submitting it, finding it was wrong, bringing it back, fixing it, do it again, I end up writing a little script, just a tiny little one-line script that said, give me a list of all the files I changed, run them through the JSON linter, which will check to see if your file is good. If it's good, add them to Git, and then I go back and look at the files that weren't added to Git and go in and manually fix them. So it was a 5-second little script that just saved all the ones that were good, and I could go back and fix them. I'm almost done. I got like 2 slides left. Right. So another really complicated one, this is actually one I did the other night, where I wanted to go through every file in a repo and change one string to another, right? So I did a nice grep. It listed them all, the files with colons in them, and yeah, pass them out. So I'm going to quickly go over my last 3 tools. JQ is a nice tool that's not standard. It's not installed on any system by default, but it's absolutely a tool you should install. It lets you take in JSON and manage it. So in this case, you can see I'm just taking in a nice JSON from an API and then printing out 2 fields from it. You can do everything from building your own JSON. You can start processing array. I think the next one I do cover, no. So processing arrays, everything you can. Command line tools makes it very easy to work with JSON on the command line. This one is a new one for me, Gron. It will take a JSON file, flatten it out so that you can actually start looking at it in a way that isn't nested 1,000 lines deep. I'm finding it more and more useful every day, but I don't have as many examples for it. But I did try to come up with a quick example of curl, JQ, and Gron. So again, run a curl command, get the results, output it, and then you can filter. Oh, my thing was cut off. But essentially filter it and then print it out, the final result. So that's my high-level overview of everything you can do in the command line. I did try to get my eggs in a little bit everywhere. I also do have a referral code for DigitalOcean. If you want to try any of this, there, got one bingo.
What? Already?
Okay, well that's being sorted out.
Reset.
I do have the referral code for DigitalOcean. If you do want to try this out that's not on your laptop.
Does it work for existing accounts? All of them. Oh.
We're not good? Okay. The referral code does not work if you have an account, but you can come see Rodrigo and I will get you hooked up. So yeah. Yes, it's also on the Luma page as well, but I can do that. All the way back at the beginning. There. I can do Q&A. According to this, I got 2 minutes left. Yeah.
I'm running.
Whoa.
Sorry. I'm running like multiple basically programs, like
Yeah.
building my package and stuff. And like I ran into this issue where if one of my tasks fails, like for example the build,
Yeah.
it would still go to the next command. So is there a way that I can like kind of like do like a try catch with Bash?
Yes, there's actually a couple ways to do it in Bash. I don't know if I would do a try-cat per se, but there are ways you can tell a Bash script, and I have to look it up offhand. I think it's -E to say if you fail at any step, bail out entirely. So you can do entirely bail and not keep going.
That's cool.
Set -E, yeah. Okay. The other one is I did show it earlier, but you can do ampersand. So if you do ampersands, it won't move on to the next step.
Okay, cool.
But then for a try-catch, you can do subshells. If you wrap it in parentheses, you can just do a subshell just for that little bit as well. And I can sit down with you later and go through it. But yeah, it's totally doable.
Thank you.
I guess related to that question, right? Like you showed that
I think, sorry.
I guess related to that question, right? Like you showed that you have like %1
Yeah.
as an input.
Yeah.
And I think %3 is like errors.
2 is errors. So one is
output.
standard
One is
output. 2 is a standard error,
Oh.
and 3 is something else. A 0 is standard in though.
Yeah. So can you use that file that contains errors to have like error checks in Bash?
Probably. I don't know offhand, but probably, yeah.
Okay. And I guess the question about Emacs mode that you showed, is it owned by default, or do you need to enable something in Bash or C?
I have been at one job where they set everyone to VI mode by default, and it confused everybody. But every computer I've been on ever since has been Emacs mode by default. So all the shortcut keys, everything that'll come online will be Emacs mode. You can switch to VI mode, and there's other modes as well, but Emacs mode is the default, and that's what you're going to end up using most of the time.
I guess that is.
There's no one else.
No one else?
Come on, another hard one.
Okay.
Asked to use Bash on Windows.
I used a Windows subsystem, yeah. So I'm a full-time Windows user at this point, yeah.
You said you know that
I know, but still. So I didn't hear anything you said. Okay.
Taking over.
Yes, please do. Please do. Thank you.
Thanks, Gavin. Oh, that's wow. Holy. Jeez.